rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick, and Mrs. Whiskey just got home, so there you go. She says hi. Anyway, all right, everybody. Yeah. So, got a smorgasbord. I guess that's how it's pronounced. Anyway, of news things. Most of the time, I like to try and create a theme for the show. But unfortunately, that didn't work out tonight. There's a lot of stuff that are a lot of news related articles and things that are out there that just don't have any tie to one another. So why not just do a smorgasbord like Thanksgiving is? Fantastic thing for it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a smorgasbord. Also, too, we have a very, well, I would consider it a weird pet of the week. This week. It's not really a pet, but it's a local, and it's very, very, shall we say, rare to see. We've got that coming up here in just a moment, and I believe, let's see, I haven't seen Nana yet, but it's Nana's submission. So, yeah, so there you go. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off with tonight. G is on board for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hats, if you're wearing one, and otherwise, place your hand over your heart and join in with G in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and thank you, G, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance, all you need to do is record yourself doing it in your style, and then take that audio or video file, I don't care which, and attach it to an email. You can either use paperclip, stapler, or super glue, according to 3 Chevy. He's our local jokester. Anyway, get it attached to that email, and then in the to section, send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get it into the rotation, as soon as possible. All right. Quick programming note. I hope you all enjoy tomorrow's festivities and festivities. If you have that, I will not, that's right, I will not, N-O-T, not be broadcasting tomorrow night. Because it is Thanksgiving, and I'll be busy buried up into my elbows in bird, and other things like pumpkin pie, cheesecake, and just enjoying the day with my family. So no show tomorrow night, but I should be picking it back up on Friday. All right. Tonight, of course, is
down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right, it is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And tonight I am drinking, haven't seen this one in a while, Four Roses Single Barrel. Where's Bonnie? She'll be happy. Four Roses Single Barrel is what is in my glass. And, of course, tonight's glass is the True Grit Roots Network glass. There it is with the stones. And apparently you have to have stones in order to drink with whiskey. That's me. Yes, that is fantastic. And so, so there we go. Becky is telling me to stuff it. I think she means the turkey. So anyway, since it is tonight, tonight is TGRN night, so tgrn.net is our promo. That's right, True Grit Roots Network. That's what TGRN stands for. You can find us on the web at tgrn.net, and you can listen right through your browser, or you can download our app from that spot. Or if you have any one of the following three applications already, whether it's Live 365, Odyssey, AUDACY, or the iHeartRadio app, you can find us in their catalog of digital radio stations. Head on over to tgrn.net and find out about what we have going on in all of our schedule. One of our scheduled programming Monday through Friday at noon Central Time is the Blue Plate Special, brought to you by TGRN Blues. Come and have lunch with the TGRN Blues crew weekdays Monday through Friday from noon to 1 Central Time, featuring tasty blues and R&B cuts from our kitchen. It's a great way to enjoy lunch together. Join many of our hosts that will go and host on the Blue Plate Special. Remember, of course, it airs weekdays noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. That's noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. Only on True Grit Roots Network. And don't forget, January 2025. January 2025, TGRN Blues switches over to a blues rock mix, headlined by a very special blues rock icon. More information and details can be learned by going to tgrn.net and check it all out there. That's TGRN, True Grit Roots Network, with TGRN Blues, based out of Austin, Texas. All right. Well, I don't know if anybody can really understand this. I know I have no idea. I'm totally confused. I don't get it. Can somebody help me to understand? We are now how far away from November 5th and 6th and 7th? And yet they're still counting. California in particular is still counting votes. And folks, there are 3 uncalled races still there. The size of the Republican House majority is going to hang on these 3 races. And I can't believe they're still freaking counting. It must be that liberal leftist method of the forgiving method or the Common Core math or something. They haven't figured out how to count from 1 till whatever. They don't get it. They don't understand it, because apparently it takes them weeks and weeks and weeks, days and days and days on end in order to count things. This is just absolutely ridiculous. Do you know India was able to count way more votes in like a 24-hour period for them? So anyway, God. But these 3 are hanging in the balance. What the heck? Give me just a second here. There it is. So there's one California Democrat apparently who pulls ahead of an incumbent Republican in the California race. That's one of 3 that are still too close to call, at least according to Fox News. 2 in California. Oh, there's 1 in Iowa. I was mistaken. That are still too close to call on Wednesday, according to the Associated Press, as ballot counting enters into a 4th week. Republicans hold a slim majority in the House of Representatives, although the size of that narrow margin will not be known until the 3 races are called. Now, of course, the left is grabbing onto these things, and they're basically mocking and mimicking or whatever and saying, you guys, there's no mandate because of this. Really? Bam's asking, how does California get away with this? Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, it's really very simple. And honestly, I mean, I have no evidence on this, but outside of the experience and anecdotal evidence, but let me explain something to you. Way back, not too far back, but several years ago, several governorships ago here in Washington, we had a race between Christine Gregoire and Dino Rossi. Dino Rossi was the Republican. And Christine Gregoire, they had a total of 3 recounts. Now, this is prior to us switching over to all mail-in balloting. So believe me, if you go all mail-in balloting, you might as well just kiss your ass goodbye. I'm telling you. And that's exactly what happened here in this state. We have never had Republicans win anything realistically here in the state other than on the east side, because the east side of the mountains here in Washington, everything on the east side of the mountains is Republican, but that's the way it goes. You have the urban areas, which is always Democrat. I don't know, it's something in the water. Or you end up with the rural areas, which is almost always Republican. And this is true on, Washington, Oregon, California, pretty much any what they consider blue state. Okay. Well, way back when, during this Dino Rossi and Christine Gregoire contest, it was so close to call that they desired, whatever they did, they ended up doing a recount 3 separate times. Now, every single time they did the recount, so the very first count went to Dino Rossi. The second count went to Dino Rossi, although after the first count, all of a sudden there was announcements everywhere like, oh my gosh, we just found a bag of ballots and they were in a closet. It was locked, but they were there. Or the other one that I thought was really fun was, oh my gosh, we found another couple boxes of ballots. They were in the personal trunk of somebody's car. Any of that sound familiar to you? Yeah. So anyway, they finally, on the third count, they finally found enough ballots in order to make up the difference and for Christine Gregoire to finally beat out Dino Rossi. Yeah. I'm telling you, people, that, as far as I'm concerned, we were the proving grounds for everything that the Democrats have done since, in terms of being able to manipulate or do whatever in terms of the elections. We were the proving grounds here, and that's what they did. So yeah, there you go. I honestly don't know. I don't understand how these guys can just keep counting. We're going to keep counting until we find the answer that we want, I guess, is the way that this goes. Well, anyway, so the balance of power, according to the article here, currently sits at 219 seats for Republicans and 213 for the Democrats. So depending upon what happens in these last 3 races, the first one being in California's 13th congressional district, former Democratic State Assembly member Adam Gray pulled ahead of the incumbent Republican John Duarte on Wednesday as votes in that congressional district continued to trickle in. I need to understand, how do votes continue to trickle in? I mean, don't you think that after a certain time, there should be a freaking cutoff? I mean, I would think it's Mark over on Facebook, counting for 4 years. Yeah, pretty much. They're just going to count until they can get the result that they wish. That's what they're looking for. Anyway, with 98.99% of the vote counted, Gray now holds a slim lead of 50.04 to 49.96. The 2 candidates are separated by just 182 votes at 104,503 to 104,321. Yeah. So that's California. California also has the 45th congressional district, which apparently is now Democratic challenger Derek Tron has finally declared victory on Monday as he maintains a tiny lead over Republican incumbent Representative Michelle Steele in the 45th district. Tran is now ahead by 613 votes. Now, people, don't tell me you with votes like this, with margins this slim, you cannot tell me in any way, shape, or form that your ballot or your vote literally does not count. Okay? It just there is absolutely no way that you can sit here and tell me that yeah, my vote doesn't count. My vote doesn't count. Yeah. Well, Steele apparently has not conceded yet. The Associated Press is yet to call the race. But 99% of the votes have been counted for that district. So, yeah, we're just going to have to see what happens here. And Iowa has their first congressional district, apparently is having some troubles. Republican incumbent Representative Marionette Miller Meeks holds a 0.1% lead over challenger Christina Bohannon, with 99% of the votes counted. Miller Meeks' lead sits at 800 votes as of Wednesday. So again, your vote, honestly, your vote counts. It's going to count. You may not think that it counts, but it's going to count. It's going to count at the local level. That's what I keep telling everybody. Forget the whole idea that, oh yeah, my vote is going to make a difference. In fact, didn't they have a movie with Kevin Costner in it where Kevin Costner was the final vote? Anyway, yeah, the possibility of that happening. But of course, that was for the presidential race, which was a whole bunch of crap because we know that the Electoral College, the electoral voting operation is the one that does the presidency. So, but anyway, yeah, so these three races are basically hanging in the balance for the final control count of the House. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you have, in this case, let's just say the Democrats take these last three seats, and you end up with a 219 to 216 position. There's 435 seats in the House. And if you only have one or two vote difference, it doesn't take a lot. All it takes is for two Republican defectors to screw every effing thing up. Okay. So, I mean, again, keep in mind, they're trying to say that makes this Trump thing not a mandate, but I'm sorry, but Trump's is a mandate. Trump has a mandate from the American people. You can deny it or say all you want about it. It is definitely a mandate for sure. So, we're just going to have to wait. We're just going to have to wait until these three uncalled races finally get their acts together and get crap done to figure it all out. It's sad, but it's true. All right. Well, you'll recall, moving over to the Senate, that was the House. Let's move to the Senate. There's a segue. I'm going to have to be creative with the ones tonight because let me tell you, these news stories are all over the freaking map. Anyway, the Senate apparently is now in favor, and by that, I mean the Senate Democrats. You remember how the Senate Democrats were sitting there yelling about, kill the filibuster, we want to get rid of the filibuster, blah, 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 blah. Because, of course, getting rid of the filibuster at the time that they were in charge would have helped them. Well, now that the shoe is on the other foot, they're not so happy about removing the filibuster. So the Dems that are there, the balance of power, of course, shifted to the Republicans in the Senate. Senate Democrats are preparing to reinstate their support for the very procedural tool, and keep in mind this is a procedural tool. It is nothing to do with the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't have anything in it with regards to this particular scenario. It has nothing to do with the filibuster. And for those of you that need to understand what the filibuster is basically where they can argue and fight over things for as long as it wants, as long as there is not a 60-40 split. In other words, what is known as a supermajority. So if there's 60 votes on any kind of bill that comes up, then the filibuster is broken. But if it's like 51 to 49, then the filibuster comes into play and they can, do things. Well, the Senate Dems filibustered the most well-known filibuster was the one over the Civil Rights Act. And it was led by several of the Democrat folks who were part of the KKK in particular. In fact, one of Biden's mentors kind of helped lead that filibuster in that scenario. So don't sit here and tell me that they have utilized the filibuster over the course of the decades and generations many, many, many times. But it is literally a procedural tool. It is something that the Senate has imposed upon themselves, and this is part of the reason why they're even talking about being able to get rid of it. But as of right now, they've lost the majority, the Democrats in the Senate, and they are trying to make significant changes to the legislative process, which this would be a defeat. Democrats are now planning to use the filibuster as part of their strategy to block Republican initiatives and President-elect Donald Trump policies. This is in LifeSet, by the way. I need to get over to that. There it is. So here's an example of the Democrats on changing the filibuster law. Take a look at this. There goes the video. The baby turns around. Oh my gosh, and runs in the other direction. I love that video. That is just so awesome. But anyway, Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, a Democrat, acknowledged the evolving stance, explaining, "I'd be lying if I said we'd be in a better position without the filibuster. We have a responsibility to stop autocratic and long-headed abuse on power or policy, and we'll use whatever tools we have available. We're going to fight this battle with one hand tied behind our back." Yeah. You would have no doubt you would want to kill the filibuster if you guys were in charge. Anyway. So as expected, yep, the Democrats, Senator Dick Durbin, old Dickie Durbin of Illinois, he's the Senate Majority Whip, the guy that advocated for the Great Replacement theory on the floor. He also highlighted the importance of the filibuster as part of the Democrats' approach to the new Congress. Yeah. Again, when the shoe is on the other foot, they have no problem utilizing these tools. But anyway, he stated, "We had to live with it when we were in the majority." No kidding. Yeah, of course you did. Anyway, Democrats are gearing up to use the filibuster, a tool many had previously sought to weaken as part of their resistance to the 53-47 Republican majority in the Senate. The filibuster, again, requires 60 votes to break a legislative hold, has been a point of contention in recent years, with Democrats pushing for its elimination to advance their progressive agenda. But no, they won't. They're not going to do it. However, with the shift in Senate control, Democrats are now adopting a more pragmatic approach, seeing the use of the filibuster to prevent Republicans from pushing through their policies. Earlier in the Biden-Harris administration, Senate Democrats, including leaders like Chuck Schumer, had called for the elimination of the filibuster to facilitate the passage of key legislation on voting rights, abortion access, and other progressive policies, including stacking the court. I'm just throwing that in there. Anyway, so yeah, that's what they're going. That's what they're doing. So now, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, of course, defended the filibuster, which both of them, remember, they flipped to independent. So they defended it, preventing any changes. And now, with the shift in power, some Democrats now see an opportunity to push for a revision of the filibuster rules, even as they embrace the tool once again. Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii, a Democrat, longtime advocate for eliminating the filibuster, expressed his internal struggle, saying, "I'm not going to try to make a mess of my position on this one." Yeah. Oh, God. Senator Chris Murphy. God, that guy's an idiot. I hit him on X all the time. He is such a moron. Anyway, he stated that while he is open to changes in the filibuster, he does not want to see it obliterated, noting his previous criticism of the filibuster as a slap in the face to majoritarianism. Chris Murphy is a moron. That's all I got to say. If you ever get a chance to check him out on X, man, let me tell you, he displays his moronic tendencies all over the place, everywhere, and twice on Sundays. There's the moron right there. There he is. For those of you who are on the audio portion of the program, you really should check out the video side. Go to rumble.com and check out, search for the American Perspective channel, and you can see the videos. You really got to take a look it out. Look it up. But anyway, yeah. Now, here's part of the problem, though. This is yet again why the Republicans don't ever win at anything. They really don't. Senate Republicans, who are led by incoming Senate GOP leader John Thune, they vow to protect it. What the hell? Some Democrats are expressing concerns about the GOP's future stance on the rule. Thune reaffirmed that Republicans would not modify the filibuster even if it posed an obstacle to President Trump's agenda. And see, this is part of the problem. I'm telling you right here, this is part of the problem. You want to win, okay? There's no quarter given anymore, folks. They've got to win. And I mean, this is just ridiculous. Anyway, folks, it's going to be an interesting 4 years. Let's just say that. Well, 2 anyway. 2. I'm sorry. I gotta say 2 because then we have the midterms, and the midterms will probably change everything. And yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, one of the problems, or one of the things that we have in terms of now, not that it really mattered in this particular electoral process, because Trump won the electoral votes well above the 270 needed. However, the 2020 census screwed some states out of gaining electoral votes. You remember I talked about this a couple of months ago, I believe. As maybe a little more than that now. I could be losing my mind in terms of where these things are coming from. But the census miscounted and misestimated, let's say, in certain states. And so there were a couple of blue states, namely New York and California, that were supposed to actually lose a electoral vote due to the census. And those were supposed to go to other red states in particular, although Oregon was scheduled to add one also. Although I'm not sure. I think they did. I think they ended up getting theirs. But the Oversight Committee and this according to the Daily Signal, the Oversight Committee is going to review the census miscounts that benefited the Democrats. Okay. So the head of the U.S. Census Bureau is set to face questions from Congress on December 5th. So that's upcoming next week, I believe, regarding its overcounting of residents of blue states and undercounting of those in red states. Such errors could aid Democrats politically by giving blue states a larger share of the electoral votes, as well as more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Remember, folks, the electoral vote of a state equals to the number of House congressional districts, okay, plus 2 for their senators. And that's how each state is allocated its electoral voting. Now, the congressional districts and tied to it, the electoral, is because of the fact that is all based on population, as well as other apportionment items and things like that. When it comes to, taxes and the ability to get federal loans, federal grants, things of that nature, all of those things are based off of population. And the population, of course, is the whole census. And the census happens every 10 years constitutionally. This year, it happens to be on 2020 and subsequently on 2030. And 2030 will be the next census. So we'll see if this actually goes anywhere. I'm assuming it will, just because of the fact that even though we're rounding out this Congress and turning over a new leaf in January, if the Republicans remain in the majority, they'll at least remain in control of the committees and hopefully will continue their good work for these kinds of and particular things. But anyway, this, again, back to the piece in the Daily Signal. The Daily Signal first reported in September that the House Oversight and Accountability Committee opened an investigation into the potential politicization, I'll say that 3 times fast, or even 5 times fast, of the population count and miscounts in 14 states. The December oversight hearing will review the Census Bureau's 2020 Post-Enumeration Survey, or PES. The hearing will also look at the Bureau's preparations for the 2030 census. The Census Bureau's review of the 2020 census revealed substantial miscounts and discrepancies tending to benefit Democrat-run states. The House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said in a statement to the Daily Signal, Congress has a responsibility to conduct oversight of these massive errors to ensure that they are not repeated in the 2030 census. The U.S. Census Bureau Director Robert Santos, who was an appointee of President Biden, is set to testify at the hearing. Additionally, Comer said, current integrity issues with the census must be addressed. He continued, the Biden-Harris administration facilitated the worst border crisis in American history, allowing millions of illegal aliens to enter and reside in our country unlawfully. To ensure only U.S. citizens are counted for the apportionment of congressional seats and electoral votes, Congress must pass the Equal Representation Act to add a straightforward citizenship question to the census. Now, if you recall, I'm going to break from the article for a second. If you recall, Donald Trump attempted to get that passed through Congress prior to 2020, which honestly I think would have maybe helped the situation. But that question was denied by Congress, the Democrat-controlled Congress at the time, in order for the census, to block the idea or the time for the census to go ahead and get that added. Continuing in the piece, Continuing in the piece, we look forward to hearing Director Santos' testimony and ensuring the Census Bureau takes the necessary steps to deliver a fair and accurate 2030 census. So, the 2020 post-enumeration survey found statistically significant miscounts in the 2020 census in 14 states. The Biden administration Census Bureau revealed in May 2022 that it undercounted the Republican-leaning states of Arkansas by 5%, Florida by 3.4%, Mississippi by 4.11%, Tennessee by 4.78%, and Texas by 1.92%. The Census Bureau undercounted one Democrat-leaning state, which was Illinois, by 1.7%. The Census Bureau overcounted the following states: Delaware by 5.45, Hawaii by 6.79, Massachusetts by 2.24, Minnesota by 3.84, New York by 3.44, and Rhode Island by 5%. It also overcounted two Republican-leaning states, Ohio by 1.49 and Utah by 2.59. So, yeah. Yep, folks. It's going to be a little bit for us to clean up the mess. The mess that the Biden administration has left us. Has left us completely in play. What a mess. Anyway. All right. So this next article, well, first of all, just as a bit of a segue into this, okay, I don't know if anybody saw, but in the news, they've been talking about several of the cabinet picks, the nominees for Donald Trump's incoming cabinet have been threatened, have had bomb calls on them, and also some apparently have been swatted. Now, for those of you that don't know what swatting means, it means that somebody calls the local department, sheriff's department, police department or whatever, and says that, oh my gosh, there's, for an example, there's a person inside and he's got hostages and he's threatening to shoot somebody or whatever. And it causes these police agencies, of course, to roll their SWAT units, which stands for Special Weapons and Tactics. Their SWAT units, and they go and they bust down the door. They do. I mean, well, Tim Pool, who is the podcaster, got on it. Cat Turd's been swatted. Marjorie Taylor Greene's been swatted. Yeah. So anyway, there's a bunch of them, a bunch of the cabinet members that have been swatted. In fact, Tom Homan has basically said, yeah, my family is no longer living in my house for the moment. I had to send them someplace safe. And, so, I mean, that's just what the left does. That's what the left does. Along with the terrorism done through those methodologies, okay, they also do things like accuse people of sexual misconduct or rape or whatever. One of those individuals, Pete Hegseth, has maintained his innocence only from the standpoint of that, yes, he does agree, or he does concur, I guess, with the fact that, yes, an interlude did happen with a particular woman who was accusing him of rape. However, he does point out that the events of the evening did not go in the way that she was describing them. And the police department, when looking into it, found that he, meaning Pete Hegseth, was correct. Well, now there's some more information that's starting to come out about this whole thing with Pete Hegseth and this encounter that happened. Here in the Populist, It's revealed now that Pete Hegseth's accuser, obsessed over him until 2 a.m., was discussing his ring and women drooling all over him. So apparently there was a text exchange, at least according to the piece, between Pete Hegseth's accuser and her, quote, close male associate. And these text messages, which they've obtained, shows that the woman was obsessing over Pete Hegseth on the night that she questionably claims that he supposedly sexually assaulted her. The 30-year-old was also married when she alleged she got drunk, ended up in Hegseth's room, and, quote, things got fuzzy. Well, Colin Rugg on X has some of these text messages that came, according to the Daily Mail. And these texts that were obtained by the Daily Mail show the accuser, who was identified as Jane Doe, says she was creeped out by Hegseth, who she also described as a tool, but wouldn't stop talking about him until around 2 a.m. She also told the friend how our ladies are freaking drooling over him. Now, why was she creeped out by Hegseth? Well, according to the accuser's texts, it was because he wears a ring on his pointer finger. Really? Then she follows that up with, he talks pretty, though. And then she added, I'm going to be here all night. Now, the accuser apparently also told the male friend that women thought that Hegseth was dreamy and wanted pictures with him. Now, there's also some video that demonstrate, by the way, that Hegseth himself was drunk and that the woman wasn't apparently visibly inebriated, okay, when they went back to Hegseth's hotel room. And this is part of the reason why the police dropped the investigation, okay? And anyway, so some of the text, so Doe apparently kicked off the conversation to the close male associate by saying, do you know Pete Hegseth? To which the male associate replied, his name sounds familiar. Who is he? The Fox, the Jane Doe replied back, he's a Fox contributor. I guess he does Outnumbered and Fox and Friends. Anyway, our ladies are freaking drooling over him, she said. Later that evening, Doe said that she had so much to say about Hegseth, which she would tell the male confidant when she returned from the trip. The male friend, holy smokes, lady, I don't remember the last time you were socializing at nearly 2 a.m. Well, she didn't respond after that. So, according to Doe, in the lead up to the alleged assault, Doe says that she drank champagne and then went to Knuckles Sports Bar, which was adjoining or adjacent to the hotel, with fellow women. When officers asked how much alcohol she had consumed, she said, much more than the normal alcoholic beverages throughout the day. The accuser also says she remembers walking out of the bar, and that Hegseth must have followed her after arguing over his behavior at the pool. She also remembers Hegseth allegedly telling her that he was a nice guy. Now, the police report, which there is a link, by the way, in this particular article to go take a look at the police report, also details Hegseth's accuser conveniently remembering saying no multiple times and waking up to bare-chested Hegseth over her. Another memory that she says she had was of Hegseth allegedly, well, I'm not going to continue. Whoops. But it was obvious, in an obvious contradiction to her narrative, the report also shows that Doe admitting to the fact that if she asked Hegseth if he had a prophylactic. Eyewitnesses say that Hegseth appeared to be intoxicated, but say that Doe never was, including her own husband, who was also staying at the same hotel during the event with their children. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, this whole thing just looks a little weird, a little off, a little not quite 100% the story. And again, Hegseth does not deny the encounter happened. He doesn't even deny the fact that, they had an affair or whatever. But he does deny the fact that he raped her. And the police at the time didn't find enough evidence to carry the whole case over. So anyway, we'll just kind of have to see. I mean, once again, in this, she was married. I mean, let's be honest. She was married, and she had her husband and kids at the hotel, and yet she was interested in taking Hegseth to his room. I mean, yeah, there's some questionable stuff here. Honestly, there really is. So we'll just have to kind of see what happens with that. But honestly, I mean, between that and, Matt Gaetz's false accusations against him. Anyway. Well, one thing that I can tell you that the government spent a crap load. I told you these segues are really going to suck tonight. One thing that the government spent a crap load of money on, and the taxpayers will never ever see that back again, by the way, is the whole Jackass Smith debacle. So as we know, Jackass Smith has asked to basically drop the cases against Trump. But here's some of the price tag, or at least up to the point that we know about in terms of the price tag. Here it is in the Populous Times. Special counsel Jack Smith drops Trump's charges after burning through, this is an astonishing number, people, $50 million in doomed trials. Seriously? 50 million? 50 million. Yeah. The left is still hanging on to this, hanging on to these things as though, they were dismissed without prejudice, so that means that they can pick him up again after Trump leaves office. Yeah. Like, anybody's really going to be interested in going after Trump after he's already been president twice? I don't think so. Anyway. There's also still, too, by the way, there's also still the question as to whether or not Jackass Smith, I should say, whether or not he was constitutionally appointed or not. That appeal, by the way, was dropped also. That was a secondary thing that was dropped. But anyway, so he, so he's burnt through a record amount of taxpayers' money during the former president's politically motivated witch hunt. And yes, that is exactly what it was. Anyway, Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed Smith as special counsel. Again, I say potentially unconstitutionally in terms of that. But anyway. It was a politically, to avoid playing a prominent role in Trump's prosecutors, to conceal the fact that it was a government-sanctioned witch hunt intended to keep Trump out of the White House. That's exactly what it is. I'm just sorry, it is. That's exactly what it was. And dropping the cases like this indicates that. Totally indicates it. Now, as I said before, Smith also dropped the appeal related to Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents, where Judge Eileen Cannon, actually said that he was unconstitutionally appointed and therefore could not be the special prosecutor and couldn't bring the charges. So now that the witch hunt is out of the way, the things are dropped. He and his team, Jackass Smith and his team, are expected to resign before Trump returns to the White House. However, Smith and the team are putting together the report. And reportedly, or at least this is what everybody's hearing, those on the left who are celebrating it, that there is a possibility that this ending report will likely get sent out to the public. Now, I'm guessing that it's probably going to end up being just like the Mueller report or Mueller report and have a bunch of made up crap and nothing in it in terms of what happened with Trump. But they're going to want to try. They're going to want to push it. And that's just the way it is. Okay. Now, other details have emerged about the wanton waste of taxpayer money that Smith and the team burned through during the doomed prosecution. According to records obtained by Newsweek through a FOIA request, that's Freedom of Information, Smith burned through $50 million during the witch hunt. Yes, that's 50 million. Okay. Additionally, 50 million during the witch hunt, which has clearly failed, obviously. Additionally, the media outlet faced a major roadblock as the special counsel was not officially a part of the Department of Justice, highlighting the extent of the political maneuvering involved in Trump's politically motivated prosecution, which again, where the funding came from is that question. In terms of, whether that was a constitutional piece, was he constitutionally funded? Also, too, is the fact that whether or not he was constitutionally appointed. These questions are still outstanding. Official records obtained by Newsweek found that Smith's office spent $5,428,579 between November 18th of 2022 and March 31st of 2023, including $2,672,783 worth of employee salaries and benefits, $456,808 worth of rent, communications, and utilities, and a whopping $1,881,926 worth of contractual services. Trish Reagan on X posted it and said, Doge can't come soon enough. Yeah. So the Department of Justice itself spent $3,818,818. Well, that's kind of an interesting number. On supporting Smith's office, including the special counsel's bodyguards. This is just money that went out the window. It was gone. And they all did it on what was essentially a guesswork. They didn't even know whether or not they were going to be able to get Trump. And it's obviously that they didn't. So the article continues here that while the breakdown of Smith's expenditures is mind-boggling, there's more here that I haven't read. But it also highlights how well-oiled Trump's witch hunt machine was under the Biden administration. This administration's term cannot come to a conclusion quickly enough. Oh, seriously. It can't come fast enough. It really can't. All right. Well, I've reported and I talked to you. Well, reported. I don't report on anything. I just observe and comment. Tommy, good point. Tommy on Facebook says it's not their money. They don't care. It's our money and we want it back now. I agree. We should have it back. Anyway. So you'll recall earlier this week, I reported on the fact that Musk was kind of toying around with purchasing MSNBC or MSLSD as Mark Levin calls them. But anyway, there was a gentleman who apparently He's a reporter for Axios. He's a previous founder of Politico. I call it Bullshitico, but anyway, so does Dan Bongino. But anyway, he went on this bizarre tirade on Elon Musk attacking Elon for purchasing X and, quote, ruining journalistic integrity by allowing people to say what they want on the platform. His name is Jim Vandehei. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but here in Woke Spy, Vandehei, V-A-N-D-E, capital H-E-I. He was in Washington, D.C. to receive a journalism award from the National Press Club, and he decided to use his podium to rip Musk's declaration to X users that, quote, you are the media now. Well, he's not wrong. I mean, let's face it, 4 years ago, roughly, a little over, or a little less than 5 years ago, I wasn't in on the media like this. And here I am doing the show and have been doing it for quite some time. I think in April we'll hit 5 years. But anyway, it just... yeah, so Jim Vandehei joined the Morning Joe. There's a stellar journalistic integrity organization. Yeah, that one's really stellar. Anyway, sorry. I'm kind of making a joke out of this because I got to admit, it is fabulously funny that this guy is going. Vandehei apparently called out, my message to Elon Musk is bullshit. You're not the media, he yelled. Everything we do is under fire. Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day, or X today, saying like, we are the media. You are the media. Well, we are the media. Oh, and apparently, according to Sabo OH, Bongino's already made a shirt that says we are the media now. Anyway, he continued, or this Vandehei continued by saying, you having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter any more than me looking at your head and seeing that you have a brain and telling you have an awesome set of tools makes me a damn neurosurgeon, right? What an idiot. Well, here's the problem, Mr. Vandehei, and Vandehei, whatever frickin' name is. I don't really care. Like I was in a conversation with a gentleman on X today. Well, at least I think it's a gentleman. The account handle started with Steve. So anyway, he was telling me about how he was talking about the fake elector scheme. Now, alternate slates of electors have been used multiple times. They are not illegal. And in fact, I even provided him with a resource that explained the entire process of how the alternate slates of electors were actually handled in Congress. Okay. But he wanted to continue. And so, of course, he tried to, first of all, he tried to hit me up with a Wikipedia reference. Folks, I'm just going to tell you this right now. If that is your primary source for information, that's part of the reason why you're a moron. Even universities don't accept Wikipedia references because Wikipedia is not an authoritative source. It's not. I'm sorry. It's too easy for other people to slip in misinformation, disinformation, lies, propaganda, and not have to cite anything. It's not a reliable source. So then I mentioned that to him and I said, hey, Wikipedia, not reliable. Universities don't allow you to do it in your, dissertation papers, whatever it was that I said. And so he comes back with an AP article. Let me just point something out to you. The mainstream media, and by mainstream media, I'm talking all of the mainstream media outlets, they have lost their credentials. The reason being is because most of these people, and, honestly, I mean, some of them might be honest and actual journalists and might try to fact check themselves before they create an article. But let me explain something to you about the mainstream media. The mainstream media is interested in one thing and one thing only: being first to the story. They don't care whether or not they are correct. Because you see, it's whoever is first that is going to get the credit for the story, that is going to get the fame for the story. All of these people who just don't seem to understand, folks, the mainstream media has shot themselves in the foot. Denzel Washington put it very promptly and succinctly when he was talking about an article that was written about him that was completely untrue. He told a reporter that was interviewing him, he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he pretty much said, look, if you do not read the news, you are uninformed. But if you read the news, you are misinformed. And it's that statement that wraps up the mainstream media in a nutshell. The mainstream media doesn't bother to make sure that their articles are correct anymore. They just don't care, because the speed at which the news occurs prevents them from doing their due diligence in order to get the story right. They are under pressure from their editors, from their stockholders, their shareholders, whatever. They are under pressure to get the story out, not whether or not it is factually correct. And this is a byproduct, basically, of the entire mainstream media ecosystem. Journalists are no longer journalists. They're just talking heads on a television. They read whatever it is put in front of them by the teleprompter, and they just don't care whether it's accurate or not, because that's not their job. Accuracy isn't their job. Don Henley put out a song about it called Dirty Laundry. They don't care if it's sensational, if it's gory, if it fits within a certain segment of society's intersectionality beliefs, then it's news. And they run with it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's right, because they don't care. And that's part of the problem today. And Elon Musk is calling that out. Independent news media, people like myself, okay, who are sitting here and honestly, podcasters, I don't have any name recognition to live off of. I don't have a huge business behind me that is paying my bills. What I am doing essentially is putting my integrity, my ethics, my morals on the line every single night that I come live and I tell you and talk to you about my opinions. But what's strange about this, and you can ask Stephen Stiles, you can ask Jonathan Richards, they've known me for a very long time, I like to get the facts. I like to have the facts, the true stories, the reality of the stories. What is really and truly going on, not the sensationalism. And so there might be times where I take a few days to try and make sure that the real story comes out before I report on something. And by report, I mean comment, because let's face it, I'm an opinion host. I'm not a journalist. But this is part of the problem. The mainstream media has lost all of their journalistic integrity. People don't believe them because they themselves shot themselves in the foot for the sake of being right. Or sorry, being first. For the sake of being first. And that's what they do. All right. Okay. Sorry, I almost missed this. Sabo OH. Whoa, thank you very much for the Rumble rant. She says, you're a trusted my source in my book, Whiskey. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And G followed that up with a comment saying, if you tell the truth, you never have to change your story. You know, it's kind of funny, folks. I've said this all of my life. I even used this when I was in the service. I will never lie to you. I guarantee it. I will never, ever lie to you. Okay. But what's weird about it is that because I can't, I physically cannot lie. I honestly, I cannot lie. You can ask Mrs. Whiskey. She's been with me for 30 years. Okay. We've been married for 26, almost 27. I don't think it'll be 27 this year soon, but she's been with me almost 30 years. She's never once known me to lie. And what I tell everybody is I don't lie. I just tell stories. And what's funny is I'll tell you if I'm telling you a story. Prior to me telling you that story. So, yeah. So if you ever hear me, if we ever meet up or whatever, and you hear me, or even here on the show, if you hear me say, well, I'm about to tell you a story. Yeah, there you go. Anyway. All right. So, there is apparently Miranda Devine. I don't know if you remember her. In her reporting of the Hunter Biden laptop story, she did a fantastic, by the way, story setup with that. And it was just amazing. Well, she has now decided and shifted and moved onto this Ashley Babbitt in January 6th. She's been putting out a few articles on this stuff. Basically, she put out this latest opinion article, and I wanted to bring it to you just because of the fact that the left they keep harping on this whole January 6th idea, and it's totally wrong. Totally wrong. But yeah, she wrote the book Laptop from Hell. Thank you for reminding me on that. Becky over on Facebook says Laptop from Hell. That's correct. But she did wonderful reporting for that. Wrote the book about it. Great book. I've read it. It's a good read. A little outdated now, but anyway, she wrote this opinion piece, Tragic Ashley Babbitt and the Buried January 6th Truth. She writes here in the piece, she says, so now we know that the cop who fatally shot unarmed Donald Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt, 36 years old, during the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot was rewarded with a promotion and a $36,000 bonus. There's no ill consequences for his rash actions that day. Instead, now Captain Michael Byrd, 56, was held up as a hero of democracy, despite the fact that he had a lengthy disciplinary record that includes leaving his loaded handgun in a public bathroom in the Capitol Visitor Center, improperly firing his gun at a car near his home while off duty, and abusing a Maryland cop who tried to stop him entering a high school football field, calling him a racist a-hole while off duty. According to a letter that was released last week by the GOP-led House Administration Committee Subcommittee on Oversight. 3 entries apparently in Bird's internal affairs records is missing, wrote Subcommittee Chairman Barry Loudermilk in a letter to Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger. Loudermilk is asking questions about Byrd and everything else that happened on the January 6th riot that was used so effectively to tarnish Trump and his supporters that provided the excuse for the Biden administration to weaponize federal law enforcement against them. January 6th was not an insurrection, but a protest that escalated into an out-of-control riot because then Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund was denied intelligence about potential threats that day. I've brought that up here on the program, by the way. And denied National Guard backup that he was begging for. I've brought that up on the program also. So, in the cold light of hindsight, the new Trump administration will ensure that the narrative of J6 is rewritten to reflect the truth of that tragic day instead of the lies spun by Democrat Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi's J6 committee. Sund is a crucial witness to history. Pelosi made him her scapegoat, firing him immediately, but she knew he had begged for the National Guard to assist his vastly outnumbered troops. He needed the permission of the Capitol Police Board and Pelosi, and then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell controlled the two sergeant-at-arms who had to give him the okay. McConnell's guy deferred to Pelosi, and Pelosi's guy kept saying that he had to run it up the chain to get Pelosi's approval, according to Sund. But the National Guard didn't arrive for hours, delayed not just by Pelosi, but also by officials at the Pentagon, who had become so Trump deranged that they believed the president would repurpose the troops to declare martial law and try to hang on to power. That was delusional groundwork that gripped Mark Milley, then chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he was the most powerful military figure in Washington. Milley was constantly talking to people about the threat of a coup by Trump after the 2020 election. Washington Post reporters Carol Leonig and Philip Rucker wrote about it in their book, I Alone Can Fix It, which paints Milley as the defender of democracy rather than an emotional weakling defying his commander-in-chief. In the days leading up to the riot, Milley told his staff that Trump's suggestions that the National Guard be deployed on January 6th were just an excuse to invoke the Insurrection Act and call out the military. That's crap. That's total crap. Anyway, yeah. So Milley, of course, came to see Trump as Hitler. This is a Reichstag moment, he told his aides, the gospel of the Führer. Yeah. Milley seemed to get radicalized after the June 2020 riots at Lafayette Square in front of the White House, which got so violent that Trump and his family had to be evacuated by Secret Service to one of those underground bunkers. So what she is basically saying here is that Milley is one of the ones that got in the way for all of this. Okay? The National Guard was approved, or potentially was approved, 3 or 4 days prior. Donald Trump wanted the troops there because he knew that there were going to be potential violence. And it doesn't help, by the way, that the Capitol Police fired tear gas and rubber bullets into peaceful protest to instigate a lot of the footage that you see running around online by all the leftist lunatics. Now, Sund has testified that the D.C. cops were so furious having to watch bloodied Secret Service agents being taken out by ambulance while they could do nothing. Now, this is obviously in regards to Lafayette Square, okay? So officers, according to Sund, officers at the Capitol's Metropolitan Police Department were ordered not to assist at the White House, undoubtedly by D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, who was a rancid Trump hater. So he continued, of course, saying that the D.C. cops were so furious at having to watch bloodied Secret Service agents being taken out by ambulance while they could do nothing. Afterward, he phoned then D.C. Police Chief Pete Newsham and asked for an assurance that if he had problems at the Capitol, the D.C. police would come and help. Although Newsham retired 5 days before the January 6th riot, the D.C. police could not have helped me more, says Sund. they sent him 1,000 officers. But when it came to the National Guard, Sun says that he hit roadblock after roadblock for January 6th. First, it was Pelosi, then the Pentagon. After his troops had been fighting rioters for 80 minutes, Sun finally got approval from Pelosi to call in the National Guard moments before the first window itself was broken. Could you imagine what would have been different, by the way, if Nancy Pelosi had just approved the National Guard to be on site? How much more calm things may have been, or potentially could have been? I mean, seriously. It's just... Now, I've told you before on this program that the National Guard, as any military operation, needs time to spin themselves up. They can't just drop and run, especially the National Guard, which typically is made up of civilians who are trying to go from their regular jobs. Had they already been spooled up 3 days prior, okay? Had they already been spooled up, they could have been at the Capitol or been close by the Capitol, waiting for the order rather than just sitting at their houses or whatever. Apparently, it took 4 hours for the National Guard to actually arrive, and it was the whole riots and everything were all over by then. So, yeah. Anyway. So, according to General William Walker, his hands had been tied by a curious memo that was issued by Miller. Who's Miller? Secretary of Defense Chris Miller, who, by the way, was suffering the same Trump delusion as Miley. But anyway, General Walker's hands were tied by a memo that was issued by Miller 2 days earlier ordering unprecedented restrictions on D.C. National Guard applying to January 5th and January 6th. Sund actually has a book called Courage Under Fire where he discusses all of this. The memo, which was written on January 4th, titled Employment Guidance, Miller dictated that without his personal authorization, the D.C. National Guard cannot be issued weapons, ammunition, bayonets, batons, or helmets, or body armor, or interact physically with protesters, employ any riot control agents, share equipment with law enforcement agencies, employ helicopters, or any other air assets, and so on and so forth. In other words, that they could literally do nothing. So, there you go. Now, there's some more to this piece, but seriously, you should go and check out Miranda Devine. She does great, great work. She actually is a journalist, and she does some fantastic work on all this. So one more thing before I get into the pet of the week, folks. Apparently, Walmart is now getting some flack because they have decided to axe their DEI policies. Yep. Walmart has decided to walk away from DEI, and nothing could be better than that. Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, in Woke Spy, wokeness continues to die in corporate America. Walmart has announced it'll be the latest to ditch their DEI policies in response to a conservative campaign on social media by Robbie Starbuck. You know, we have, the conservatives have some really good effective ground workers, Robbie Starbuck, and we can't forget, we can't forget, but I just forgot. God, I know his name, the guy in Pennsylvania who signed up all of those people to vote in Pennsylvania. I can't think of his name right now. It's right off the top of my head. It was there and then it left. I've got old timers, or some timers. I sometimes remember. But anyway, Scott Pressler, thank you. Yes, Sabo OH with the save. I told you I have the most intelligent listening audience in the ethosphere. But anyway, USA Abby girl, got to give her credit. She came in right behind with it too. Scott Pressler, thank you. But Robbie Starbuck has announced on X that Walmart is ending their woke policies. I can now exclusively tell you what's changing and how it happened. So then he gives this whole story about it. So the Human Rights Campaign's Woke Corporate Equity Index has been scrapped from Walmart's to-do list. While the corporation has also pledged to monitor marketplace sales to ensure inappropriate material is not targeting kids at the same time. Furthermore, it will get rid of its Racial Equity Center, which was established as a 5-year project in 2020. So supplier diversity programs will be evaluated to ensure they do not provide preferential treatment and benefits to suppliers based on diversity, while the controversial term of Latinx will not be used in official communications going forward. Racial equity training through the Racial Equity Institute is also out the window, as is the term DEI itself. Yeah. So, yep, things are going down. And Starbuck has been very effective, by the way. He's really effective. He's been able to get Ford, Caterpillar, Toyota, and Harley Davidson, among several others, to reverse their DEI policies. So, yeah, it's fantastic. Elon Musk, of course, congratulated Starbuck on it as well. So, folks, we're slowly taking it back. We are slowly taking America back, the Republic back, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing. All right. Whew. Well, we made it through the smorgasbord. Anybody stuffed? I know I'm stuffed. I'm going to be stuffed tomorrow, I'm going to tell you. If I ended up doing some kind of a broadcast tomorrow, I would be probably 3 times my size on TV. And they say the camera adds 10 pounds. Anyway. All right. Well, let's send you into the holiday with a fantastic pet of the week. All right, folks. Tonight's pet of the week was put in by Nana JJS over on Rumble. And it's an interesting little pet of the week, okay? And by interesting, I mean I have never, ever seen this kind of coloration on something that is, shall we say, typically a normal, something that is viewed often in cities and towns and even out here in the rural areas of the country. But the thing about it is, though, folks, seriously, the thing about it is it is a very, very unique coloring. And let me go ahead and bring it up here. You can see kind of on the edge of the screen here. Has anybody ever seen a white squirrel? Now, it's hard to see from the picture, okay? And there's 3 or 4 of them. Don't worry, I'll get there. But it's kind of hard to see from the pictures. The first thing that you would see is you would think immediately, oh my gosh, that's an albino squirrel. Okay, well, here's the thing, is that in order for it to be albino, the eyes would have to be pink or red because they would indicate the absence of the pigment that would normally be in the iris of the eye, okay? But here, unfortunately, these photos are a little far out, and so I can't really tell if it's an albino. So I did a little research, because that's what I do. I mean, I drink and I know things. That's my job here on this program. And so I took a look and decided to see, well, I mean, other than the albino piece, which, that is possible. Don't get me wrong. It's completely possible. Very rare for any albino to show up. Albino squirrels are extremely rare. estimates are suggesting that only 1 in 100,000 of the eastern gray squirrels are considered true albinos. Okay. And again, keep in mind, a true albino of anything will have either red or pink eyes due to the absence of the melanin. Whereas another type of squirrel, which I think is what this is, actually has brown eyes, or dark eyes, I'm sorry, not brown. So here is another photo while I continue. There is a possibility of what is considered to be a white squirrel. And yes, I have to put the white in there, okay? But there is a possibility of a white squirrel that is not necessarily albino, all right? So a white squirrel is essentially a depending possible mutation or whatever, but there is in fact one specific tree squirrel for which a white coat seems to be characteristic of the entire species. It's called an oriental tree squirrel, and it's found in Thailand in particular and other parts of South Asia. Another belongs to yet another undescribed species recently found on islands in the Philippines. However, the white squirrel that is found here in North America, by the way, okay, outside of captivity, is almost certainly a color variant of one of our native species that exist here. The eastern gray squirrel would be an example. So squirrel coats, of course, have a wide variation of color. In this particular case, the white squirrel is just another color variant of this variable species. The most common sightings of white squirrels are of isolated individuals with a completely white coat with dark eyes. And that is, I think, what this little guy is. Because if you zoom in real close on his eyeball, I don't see, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell in this photo, but if you zoom in here, it's very pixelated. But if you look, that doesn't look like a pink eye or a red eye. This, white squirrels are considered rare, okay? Now, there have been some that have been sighted in a place called, as an example, Brevard, North Carolina, okay? But these squirrels apparently have, even though they're rare, they obviously lack the ability to blend in their environment, hence the reason why you can see him so clearly against the grass and the trees. But him or her. And here you can see him standing up, and let's see if we can get a little closer on the eye. Yep, that looks a little dark to me. So I don't think this squirrel is an actual albino. I think it is a white squirrel, a rare white squirrel. And that is fascinating. Now, I would be careful. I'd watch him because, he or she is gonna have some serious problems, hiding. So obviously, just because of the fact that it looks like he's at least an older juvenile, either the predatory nature of the animals that are surrounding it haven't caught on to the fact that the squirrel is around, or he or she is very, very good at hiding. But this is definitely a rarity, folks. Definitely a rarity. So just, wow, that is fantastic. Thank you so much, Nana, for sending that in. And that is tonight's pet of the week. That's fantastic. So I actually think this is a white squirrel. I would love, Nana, if you could, try and get a close-up picture or closer picture, or possibly, see if maybe the eye actually is pink or red. Or if it's actually dark. If it's dark, it's a literal white squirrel. So anyway, there you go. All right, folks, that is it for me for the evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are there and signed up, search up the American Perspective channel and click that green follow button so you get notified every time I go live. Have an absolutely wonderful Thanksgiving. All of you out there, enjoy the feasting, the festivities, everything that comes along with it. And might I suggest, by the way, that you check out on YouTube, find Rush's Thanksgiving story, okay? Because it tells you the true story of Thanksgiving. It's about 30 minutes, 25 minutes long, and I listen to it every Thanksgiving, along with, of course, the Peanuts rendition of the Peanuts Thanksgiving special that comes on, or that we get every year. We watch it. So that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. All right, we will see you Friday, not tomorrow, but Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the festivities, family, friends, feasting, whatever. And we'll see you Friday night. Have a great rest of your evening and happy Thanksgiving all. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.